Hello and welcome. This is going to be a quick video on how to quickly refletch an arrow. We're going to show it in the quick, easy, and cheap way. We will be doing it on a gold tip Ted Nugent 400 spine arrow. I believe this arrow is about 26 inches long. It has been shot several times. It went through some damage, and now we are going to refletch it. I'll quickly show you what I have in my bag here that I use for fletching arrows. This is more of a mobile setup, not anything that we keep locked down. So I'll just quickly go through it. I like to use non-acetone nail polish remover to kind of clean the surface and get everything prepped for adhesion. Along with that, this is what I use to strip any kind of fletching that's left over or any kind of arrow wrap. It is just a CRKT M16-10KS. The reason I use this one is because it actually is only sharpened on one side, so I can actually take it and just run it flat against the arrow, and it doesn't kind of cause any gouging or anything like that in the arrow. Along with that, the fletching jig that I use when it's not strapped down to the bench is the Goat Tough. What I like about this is that it weighs nothing. It comes with multiple little fletch jigs here, so you can see if you're running longer heat vanes and things like that, you do have multiple options. I believe I got this on sale for somewhere around $35. Very inexpensive, and it works very well. I run a 3-degree helical with blazer vanes, and basically I'll put it at a 1/4 inch plus, which basically just means we're pushing it on the shaft a 1/4 inch forward. So it also comes with the ability to do 4 fletch, as you can see here, and 3 fletch. And I usually just always run 3 fletch. So this is the little tool that I have for doing the fletching in my bag. Along with that, we also have some other compartments here. This is my arrow squaring device by G5. This is a very important tool when you're cutting arrows. I just keep that in the bag just in case we need to square up any of the ends or anything like that. It's just a good tool to have. Keep things nice and square. And this side, this is my actual arrow weighing scale. This is made by October Mountain Products. It's a very, very nice scale, very easy to use, very easy to read. I'll use this when I'm doing a more advanced setup for the arrows. You can see it's very precise, works very well. The arrow that we're working with today, just to kind of give you a quick little idea of how this works. Right now it's sitting at 278.6 grains without any kind of tip or anything like that in it. But yeah, this is, I'll do another video later about how to do a more advanced arrow setup where we actually weigh all of the fletchings. We'll get a total arrow weight. We can see exactly how much wraps affect the arrow, things like that. There's actually a lot that goes into it that really doesn't matter in most situations, but if you're trying to get the most precise arrow and the most precise setup possible, it is good to just kind of go through and weigh everything. Now onto the inside, the main part of it. These are where I have 2 little containers here where I keep my inserts, my fletchings, and also some nocks. I like this little setup. Just like I said, mobile on the go. Here's our inserts. I keep a few of those extra just in case. And this whole setup is geared towards these arrows. I do have other arrows that I shoot, but when I'm practicing, I generally use these arrows. They're inexpensive, and they seem to work really well. I've shot them in quite a few different bows, and I've shot them for a long time. This arrow's probably been shot 500 times by itself. Obviously all into soft targets, and we try not to hit them with other arrows. But as you can see, there's only a little bit of damage from another arrow hitting it here. Besides that, they're very tough. They work very well. So yeah, my entire setup is geared more towards those arrows, hence why it has specific inserts in it, specific nocks, as well as specific wraps that are designed to fit that exact diameter of arrow. And I'll do another video talking about arrow wraps and kind of the effects that they have. There's not really any negative effects, but they definitely can change your front of center if you're very concerned about that. It's not going to be by a lot, but every bit counts when you're building custom arrows. So I think on this arrow, because I do have a lot of extra QE colored laser veins here, I'm going to do 2 of those and a purple one. And I'm also going to change over to a fluorescent orange knock, just because. So what I like to do when I get started is just kind of put everything out that I'm going to need. So I don't need anything out of here anymore. And I will put that back just to keep my workspace nice and clean. And from here, I will just kind of move everything into place. Here's our jig. One thing that I do like to do with this jig, and it's not necessary at all, I get this heat duct foil, and I will actually just stick it right on top of here and poke my vein down through that. What that does is when I get glue all over this, I can just peel this right off without actually having to clean this. It's just one of those things where it's quick and easy, not at all necessary, but when you're trying to do things quickly, every little bit helps. And you can just take a vein and just poke right down into that. Just get it nice and even in there. And then your vein will sit right in the correct channel, and it won't throw anything off at all. Just like that. Now, let's go ahead and clean our arrow. Like I said, I just use a little bit of non-acetone fingernail polish remover. And even though we're obviously only fletching one end of the arrow, I like to clean the whole arrow. Just go through, wipe every bit of it down. This arrow, it's been shot a lot, but it's still, you know, it looks new. It doesn't have any kind of deformations. It still shoots great, and that's why I'm fixing it up tonight. I've got about 5 arrows that I use at all times for my practicing, and this is one of those 5. So I like to kind of keep them around for as long as I can. As we all know, arrows aren't cheap, and this is one way to save a little bit of money. Now let's talk about why somebody might want to do this at home. For me, my local shops, they tend to be 3 to 4 days out on doing any kind of fletching work. And that's, you know, you drop your arrow off in the morning and you might get it back 3 to 4 days later. That was one of my main driving factors. Also, they like to charge between $4 and $12 an arrow depending on what you're getting done. With this particular arrow, it used to have a wrap on it, and it just had three fletches. I know that when we initially got these arrows done, they were a little over $12 a piece at the archery shop, so I decided to do them myself. I got an arrow saw, I got the adhesives and things like that, and just decided to do them myself. That being said, It's not for everybody. Sometimes it is a little bit more cost effective just to have your arrows dropped off and refinished. Not everybody wants to take the time to buy all this stuff and set it up, even though it might be inexpensive and fun. It's not for everybody, and we understand that. So, with that being said, I would say all in all into building these arrows. Like I said, I got this on sale, about 35 bucks. Blazer vanes are extremely inexpensive. I mean, all the vanes that I have, I might be into them $100, and I have enough to do dozens of arrows. This is just a small amount of what I have. I have many more. Nocks and things like that, this is a customizable option that you can just go pick up at any big box store. In fact, I believe I got these at Cabela's. So that's not really a pro shop thing that you have to search for. That being said, let's go ahead and get started on this, and we'll go from there. Alright, so the glue I'll be using today is just regular old super glue. I've used all sorts of different Fletch glues. I've used different types of adhesives that are designed specifically for arrow fletching, and I will tell you almost every single one of them is the exact same as super glue. I've not had any issues using super glue. I've used super glue to glue in my inserts, as well as hot melt. I have tried several different techniques, and I have never had super glue actually fail me. I have had inserts fall out on multiple arrows using super glue, but I've also had that happen using hot melt. When I glue vanes down, especially over arrow wraps, it's always the wraps that tear off first and not the actual vanes. Generally, if I lose a vane, it leaves the bottom portion of it on the shaft itself, so it never actually peels from the shaft. It usually tears from the shaft. So that being said, all super glue is fairly inexpensive, but if you're not able to find any kind of specific fletching glue, or you don't want to spend a couple extra dollars for specific fletching glue, super glue will work just fine. The only thing I will say is make sure to always keep these stored face up. Even the kind that claims to be self-sealing and things like that, if you store them at any kind of angle or anything like that, it seems like no matter what, it will always plug up the tip here, and your super glue will no longer be of function. So let's move on to this. Looking at these arrows, how these ones are specifically done, you can kind of see a little dimple in the shaft itself. You can line it up with that. There's also a line that runs down the entire shaft. You can kind of see it there against the black. It doesn't really matter how you line it up. Some people say line it up with the spine, do a noctune before you do any kind of fletching. I've done a lot of testing, and I have yet to find any kind of difference. That being said, I still like to, when I insert this tool here, I like to line it up to where you can see there's a little knock line on the knock itself, that little plastic nub there. I'll line that up with this, and then I will also line them up with that little spline line. It doesn't matter, but I do it just because. Again, I've never had any kind of effects. Nothing has ever caused any kind of issues doing it this way or another way, but I'll do it just for the consistency of it. So, with this Goat Tough fletching tool, you can see there is some variance. You can wiggle this whole thing forward and back. So what I like to do is basically just get this as square as possible, and then just give it a couple of quick dry fits just to make sure that there's nothing weird. Then I'll remove it. And the most important part of fletching is the front of the fletch and the back of the fletch. Obviously the middle needs to be nice and glued too, but as long as you get a nice pattern on the front and the back, you should be in good shape. One thing I like to do before starting, especially on the first one, is just make sure that there's nothing in the tip of the glue bottle itself. This one's good and clean, so we will just start. Just get a nice bead all the way along here. It will squeeze out some, so it does not have to be perfect. But you can see the whole length of the Fletch itself has glue, and now we are going to line it back up with that, and we will simply push it down just like that. Now, this goat tough jig did originally come with some clips that you can just clip the arrow down and walk away. I don't find that to be super necessary. Super glue sets very quickly. Fletch glue is the exact same as super glue, so no matter what kind of adhesive you're using, it will set very quickly. There's really no reason to clamp it down as you go, but it is nice that it is an option just in case you're using some sort of long set glue or something like that you're experimenting with. They say to hold it down for about 30 seconds and then you should be good to go. You know, typically in my experience, 30 seconds is more than enough. So we should be able to lift it and see our first Fletch, and there it is. So some people will wipe the excess adhesive off while it's drying. I don't typically do that. What I will do is I will let the whole thing dry, and then you can actually take that little knife that I showed earlier or a razor blade or something like that and get the excess off. But it doesn't really matter. It's all preference. If you want to get it off right away, it does not hurt whatsoever. You're not going to peel that Fletch off once it's already set like that. And then for our next one, we'll just stick it down in the groove and repeat the process. Again, just make sure that you have plenty of adhesive on the front and on the back, and then we'll just kind of use the tip of the bottle to spread it around, and we will go to our next one. Now, one thing that you can do is you can kind of see where you started with the first one, just by kind of moving that back and forth. That way you can get a nice even drop on them. Again, I've experimented with moving the veins forward and back. I've gone an inch forward and an inch back in every which direction, and to be completely honest, it does not make a huge difference whatsoever. I do tend to get a little bit better grouping with my arrows as long as they are more towards the rear of the shaft. So like I said, I like to run it about a 1/4 inch forward on this goat tough jig, and that seems to be about the best place for me. But you can always experiment around. This is very cheap, easy, and quick, and typically you can peel them right off with the knife. Just kind of shave them off, and you can start over with a new Fletch if you don't like the way that your arrows are shooting. That's another nice thing about doing it yourself, is you don't have to wait for the pro shop to refletch your arrows. My shop does not charge for removing the Fletches, but they do, if you have a lot of arrows, will charge their hourly rate if they have to remove too much. So again, depending on what your shop is and what they like to charge, or how they structure their pricing, this may be a very cost-effective way for you to arrow tune to your bow. Again, every vein shoots different. Typically, heat veins will have a little bit tighter grouping at certain yardages versus these blazer veins. These blazer veins, in my opinion, will definitely give you a better broadhead group. They just grab a little bit more air, especially with a 3-degree helical. You can have a pretty crazy setup, and these will still straighten the arrow right out. So I think they're great veins especially to start with if you're starting to build your own arrows. Definitely recommend starting with blazer veins. They're great for that. And just like that, we are done. Here's our finished product. You can see a little bit of glue on there, just like you would typically see at the pro shop which means you've got plenty and you've done a great job. Now for our nock, like I said, I want to run this fluorescent orange one just because, and I am going to set that perpendicular to my purple Fletch. That way when I actually string it into the bow or knock it into the bow, we will get that opposing shot. Alright, now before anything dries, I like to peel off my little protective layer here. Be careful not to get any super glue on your fingers as you're doing this, and that goes for any kind of adhesive that you're using. And once this is off, I will put everything away. And we'll leave just a little bit on there. I like to do this sometimes just that way. If there is any excess glue, which I can see a little bit down in there, it'll just dry on this first. That way it doesn't get on anything. Put that away. And our final step is to insert our fill point. If you're running a broadhead or anything like that, obviously this step's going to look exactly the same, just with a different tip. These are easy remove tips. They work really well in foam targets, so that's why they might look a little different from a typical tip that you might be using. But just like that, we are fully fletched and our arrow will be ready to shoot. Typically I would say wait about half an hour before flinging an arrow. I've done them immediately after and not had any issues, but you don't want to have to go through this whole process all over again. So just give it about a half hour to set and you'll be on your way.